Hi, welcome to chapter 2, the invitation. So again, you can see in my background that I have the chapter title, the book title. We're not from here, but then I also have my chapter questions, which is what I'm going to have open in front of me as I'm listening so that when I hear an answer, I can stop the video, I can pause, and I can answer it right then and there. Okay, so what we're listening for today has some vocabulary. So grim, riot, barricade, and diplomacy. And then you have a journal question that says the people of Mars are offered 3 options for their next step of survival. To wait for the terraform of the new planet, Novo, the one that they mentioned the last time, to go back to Earth, or to go to this planet Choom with the giant bugs. And the question says, which one would you pick and why? So you just have to tell me. It can't be wrong. It's just your opinion. And then the comprehension question says, what are the living conditions and life in general like on Mars? Give 3 examples to support your answer. And then it does say if you want to do more, you can do more for extra credit. Okay? All right, so here we go. The invitation. They're called the Zuri, Mom told me when she got back to our living compartment late that night. They seem very peaceful and civilized, and we're grateful they're even talking to us. Do they really look like giant bugs? Isla asked. She didn't lift her head from the pillow or even look at us, but she did pause the Burnleys episode she was watching on her screen, which, by Isla's standards, meant that she was incredibly interested. Don't call them bugs, Mom warned her. It could be very offensive to them. And then she sighed. But yes, they look like very tall mosquitoes. And they're not the only advanced species on planet Choom. Apparently there are 4 of them, all living together in the same society. 3 of the 4 evolved on other planets before they came to Choom. That's good for us. It means they have a history of welcoming other species as immigrants. Which I think is, that one. Do the other species look like giant bugs too, or just the Zuri? Mom gave me an annoyed frown. Lan, seriously, don't call them bugs. Sorry, I said, but do they? Mom shrugged. We don't know yet. There's a lot we don't know. It's been hard to communicate. The lag time between here and Choom is huge, and we're still trying to get a handle on their language. By the way, whatever you do, don't discuss this with anybody until the GC makes an official announcement tomorrow. Mom looked at me as she said that. Since Isla never left our compartment unless my parents insisted, the odds of my sister discussing anything with anybody were pretty slim. Can we talk to Dad about it? Yes, but you probably won't see him. He's working late again tonight. Back on Earth, Dad had been a scientist. On Mars, he was part of a group in the nutrition department that was trying to create a food substitute. It was important work, because everybody knew that sooner or later we'd run out of the rations that we brought from Earth. As far as I could tell from a couple of whispered conversations I'd overheard between Mom and Dad, that was happening a lot faster than people thought. Dad and the rest of his group had been working around the clock for weeks. What's the GC going to tell people? Isla asked Mom. Just that Planet Choom and the Zuri exist, and that the governing council is talking to them about accepting human refugees. But it might not happen, and if it does, it'll take a while. It took longer than a while. In the end, it was another 8 months before the Zuri officially invited humans to Choom. By then, life on the Mars station was grim. The air processors were wearing down, which made the oxygen levels drop so much that everybody felt tired all the time. Water rationing got so strict that people could only shower every 10 days, so the whole station smelled like an armpit. People's clothes were turning not just stinky, but ragged. Even on limited rations, I'd somehow managed to keep growing until I had to go back to the exchange and swap my stained jeans and Taylor Swift tee for a scratchy Yomiuri Giants jersey and a pair of beat-up khakis with holes in both knees, which kept reopening no matter how many times I sewed them back together. The biggest problem, though, was the food. When the Earth supplies ran out, Dad's team in nutrition introduced chow, and everybody hated it. It had 3 flavors, curry, berry, and harvest. And within a few days, people had started calling them choking, barfing, and heaving. After a month of nothing but chow to eat, the food protests started. And Dad took it personally. When people stopped him in the hallways to complain, he'd give them a tight smile and say things like, "We're doing the best we can with the resources we've got. And I know it leaves a lot to be desired, but Chow's keeping us alive." Back in our compartment at night, he was a lot less polite. "It's ridiculous," he'd vent to Mom. "What do they expect, lobster Newburg?" When Nia, Jens, and I made top 10 recipes for Chow, and one of them was lobster Newburg, Dad didn't think it was funny. A lot of the other people did, though. Judging by the laughter when it first played, it was one of our most popular videos. But we stopped screening it after the food riot happened. The riot was terrifying. 11 people were injured, and during the worst of it, we had to barricade ourselves inside our compartment while rioters pounded on our door and yelled for Mom and Dad to come out. Security got things under control eventually, but it was a couple weeks before Mom let me walk around the station by myself again. Even after that, every time I left our compartment, a little knot of fear settled into the pit of my stomach, and it didn't go away for the rest of our time on Mars. The situation might have gotten even worse after the riot, but then the problems with the air processors started, and the lack of oxygen made everybody too tired to complain. To cause trouble. "They did it on purpose," Jen told Nia and me. "My dad says the GC lowered the oxygen levels just to control people." I was pretty sure that wasn't true, but I was too tired and hungry to argue with him. All of us were tired and hungry, not to mention smelly and desperate, by the time the GC crammed us all into the cafeteria to watch the government of Planet Choom's official offer of refuge to the entire human race. They moved the big screen over from the rec center for the occasion, and Mom stood under it with Dr. Chang and General Schiller, who introduced the video. Mom started by telling us how kind and selfless the people of Choom were, what a precious gift the invitation was, and what a great job the diplomacy department had done in negotiating with Choom's government. Then Dr. Chang asked us to turn on the translator apps the GC had pushed to our screens the night before. "You should be able to hear a clean translation of the Zuri through your earpieces," she said. Unfortunately, while we've been told that everyone in the video is speaking the Zuri language, our translation program can't comprehend the accents of the Crick, Ororo, and Nug people. We've prepared subtitles for these sections, so please keep an eye on the video screen. And now, here's the invitation. Mom and the other two leaders stepped aside. The screen came to life, and 4 very different-looking aliens appeared on it, in a wide shot that let us view them from head to foot. Except that not all of them even had feet. At the first sight of the aliens, there were gasps from the crowd. A couple of people shrieked in fear. "Mercy!" cried a woman from somewhere behind me. I didn't gasp or yell, but my whole body went weak, and my heart started to thump. They just looked so alien. Taking up the whole left side of the screen was an Ororo, a giant white-blue marshmallow with sleepy dark eyes. It must have had legs, but its body was so thick and blobby I couldn't see them. As it lumbered toward the screen with the others, its flesh quivered like an enormous bowl of gelatin. In the middle of the screen, leading the group toward the camera, was a Zuri. I'd seen plenty of photos of them by this point, so the stick-like body, huge compound eyes, tube-shaped mouth, and long wings that folded down its back weren't a surprise. But the bendy-legged, funny, scary way it walked was deeply weird. Watching it move, I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. On the near right, and less than half as tall as the other, was a Crick, a fuzzy little green werewolf with bulging muscles, red eyes, and an enormous mouth with double rows of razor-shaped, sharp gray teeth. If it hadn't been so short, it would have looked terrifying, although I wondered later if it only seemed short because the others were so tall. Finally, there was a Nug. It was the strangest of the 4, a massive worm-like creature that slithered forward in an L shape, its stick body topped by a gaping hole. It was like a combination of an eggplant, a sea slug, and an open garbage can. The 4 of them moved to what I guess was a few feet in front of the camera and then stopped. The Zuri's tube-shaped mouth vibrated as it began to speak in a high-pitched whine. Eee! A moment later, the translation came through my earpiece. The translator app had given the Zuri a voice signature that sounded like a gentle, elderly man. In a weird way, the voice was almost soothing. It was much less scary listening to a giant mosquito talk when it sounded like somebody's kindly old grandpa. On behalf of the United Government of Choom, we send greetings to the humans and offer our sorrow at the loss of your home planet. All 4 of our species, at earlier stages in our development, suffered from varying degrees of self-inflicted violence. But just as we have evolved beyond violence, we are confident the human species can do so too. Thus, we offer you refuge among us, that you may live and thrive in our multi-species society. As long as you remain peaceful, you are welcome here. The Zuri's body bobbed up and down as it stepped back on its bendy legs. Then the muscular little crick came forward and opened its toothy mouth. Its voice was a rough, snappish growl. The translator app beeped in my ear. Unknown language detected. And it said as the crick's message appeared in a subtitle on the big screen. The crick have always lived on planet Choom. We like it here. You may join us if you do not make it worse. The crick stepped back, and the giant marshmallow Aurora glooped forward. The Aurora's voice was so deep that even through the speakers you could practically feel the vibrations in my chest as the translator beeped helplessly in my ear again. The Aurora are not bothered by the thought of your arrival. It seemed like a strange thing to say, but I didn't have time to dwell on it, because the Nug was already slithering forward to its own greeting. Screech! The Nug's voice was so loud and screechy that it drowned out my translator's unknown language message. People around me covered their ears, and even the 3 other aliens in the video seemed to lean away from the Nug and grimace uncomfortably as it shrieked its welcome. Hello! The Nug are Planet Choom's newest immigrants. We are excited to meet you. We hope you will share in our celebrations. Yeah! The Nug's final scree was so loud that I felt like I had been stabbed in the ears with a pair of forks. Fortunately, it stopped talking and slithered backward after that. The Zuri leader loped forward again on its springy legs. We hope you will accept our invitation. Your journey to Choom will be long, but a new home awaits you here, and we are eager to meet you. Until then, may your travels be safe. The video ended. There was an uneasy silence as General Schiller walked back to the front of the room to address us. Mom and Dr. Chang trailed behind him. I think it goes without saying, the general told us, that this is a real unusual situation. It'll take some getting used to. But all of us in the GC are in strong agreement that if we want the human race to continue, Planet Choom's our best bet. We hope you feel the same. As it turned out, though, not everybody wanted to move in with the strange-looking aliens and their ear-splitting screeches. Some people wanted to hold out for terraforming Novo, even though the GC warned that they still didn't have enough data to know if it was possible. Dr. Chang suggested that the Novo group come to Choom first. It was twice as close to Novo as Mars, so it would be much easier to study Novo and then launch a trip from there. But the Novo faction didn't want anything to do with Choom. In the end, 400 of them decided to stay on Mars and prepare to go straight to Novo. Even more shocking were the almost 900 people who voted to go back to Earth. All the scientists agreed it wouldn't be livable again for hundreds of years, but the Earthers refused to believe them. Jens and his dad were Earthers. You'll see, Jens told Naya and me, it's going to be fine. Once you're off living with those alien freaks, you're going to wish you were back here on Earth with us. I was sure that he was wrong, but I didn't argue with him. It wouldn't have helped unless I could have somehow changed Jen's dad's mind, too. And Mom and Dad both told me that was impossible. People believe what they want to believe, Dad said with a shrug. In the end, all Naya and I could do was hug Jens and tell him we'd keep in touch. I'll be super weird, he said. You're going to spend the next 20 years in biosuspension. By the time you get out of it, I'll be like your dad's age. I sure hope so, Naya said. What do you mean? Nothing. Then she hugged him again, and I hugged him too. Be safe, okay? You too. Send videos. We will. Then Naya and I joined Isla, my parents, and 1,018 other people on the shuttle up the transport that waited in low orbit to take us to planet Choom. The living conditions on the transport were even worse than the Mars station. Nobody had their own compartment, and we all had to sleep in our biosuspension pods, which were in one giant room together. Fortunately, we were only on the transport for 2 days before we all went into suspension and woke up the next morning, or 20 years later, depending on how you looked at it, in a solar system 60 trillion miles away, ready to start a new life on Choom. But there was a problem. During the 20 years we were asleep, the aliens had changed their mind about us. Dun, 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 dun. Chapter 3 is called Never Mind, Can You Just Go Away? All right, next time.